Welcome to another episode of I Wonder, Doctor.
I'd like to talk about the nuts and bolts of uncomfortable emotions and thoughts that lead to very uncomfortable living. Because when someone is in major, moderate, whatever you want to call it, emotional and mental discomfort, it can feel like this big lost space where things are going on that feel hopeless and awful, and they're vague. And not only that, it can get worse than that to where it feels really uncomfortable. And anyone who has been to a really uncomfortable place knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But the good news is these are as understandable as appendicitis in a certain way. I mean, someone gets a pain down here, and they might even think, well, there might be a cause there. And a doctor says, well, yeah, we better operate on your appendix. That's what it looks like, and everything is understood and dealt with. As vague as uncomfortable and challenging emotions and living situations are, they're also explainable. And let me take you to where it all begins. Life itself, living itself, who we are, really, and the living of life, if we're in the moment and perceiving it and experiencing it, is beautiful. It's amazing. It has love in it. It has humor in it. An extraordinary beauty, so rich and so robust, we don't even have to get a handle around a tenth of it or a thousandth of it. It's so rich. And yet that's not necessarily where we are as we are growing, developing human beings. Like, for example, some people cannot be in the moment. They can have uncomfortable feelings going on. They can have uncomfortable thoughts going on. In fact, they can get so distracted into these uncomfortable thoughts and feelings that that's really what's going on. And it's coloring their opinions, and they are making unbeneficial choices that lead to more stress, and it just twirls downward. And the name of emotional and mental healing is being able to identify when you're not living and you've slipped into what can seem ever so real, emotions and thoughts that seem so important. She did me wrong, or they did me wrong, or he did me wrong. You get locked up in that whole way of living, and you can pretty much count on that the majority of things that are uncomfortable are actually resolvable. So, how do we address these things? Well, let's break it down. I want to break down what the bottom line of these things are. Someone who's in the most severe emotional state, when they get clear on it, when they get through the fog, that some of these common and not so understandable terms like anxiety and depression are, these are not core experiences. When you get into anyone's anxiety and depression, you wind up getting into some very uncomfortable feeling territory. It breaks down, to use words to try and point in the direction of what they are. It gets down to fear, or sadness, or anger, or shame, which is the feeling that there's something wrong with me, or guilt, what I do is wrong, or hopelessness, or meaninglessness, or powerlessness. I mean, those are words to define these very uncomfortable emotional states, but they're the bottom line. And even someone who is at the worst emotional place that they can possibly be, if you help them get into what's actually going on, there's nothing below fear, sadness, anger, shame, and guilt, which can be quite a relief, oddly enough, paradoxically enough, if I help someone move in out of the vagueness and into, well, what's really going on, to where they're feeling what's really going on. They're going to wind up with fear, sadness, anger, that list, and that's what they're going to find. Now, that will be accompanied with uncomfortable thoughts, languaged by many different approaches to this, like beliefs, and it's not good language. It's like, life is terrible, I'll never get out of this. They're all negative, right? I'm a victim of that horrible person who is abusing me. And if you can get down to those levels, you can work with that. And you know, the most phenomenal thing, as we all mentioned in many, many videos that we have on this subject, is if you can get down to that level where you're feeling the uncomfortable feelings and you accept them. You feel the fear. And you don't heal the fear, you don't try and change the fear. You just breathe and feel. Anyone who does this, under almost every circumstance, will experience an internal healing. They'll experience relief, even if they were in the state of very significant fear. And we're going to demonstrate that in I Wonder, Doctor, because so many people who, that's part of the work that I do with people, is when they're in one of those fear states, I help them feel it, and feel it, and feel it, and feel it. And if they feel it, they're doing an act of unconditional love. They're learning unconditional love, self-acceptance. They're allowing what's going on in them to be what it is. And you know, the miracle is it melts, and they feel better.
Now, as you know, this is only the beginning. We created the weekly school, and we put into it everything we can think of to help people heal.
There are more videos in this series available in our weekly school. Click to join. It's free.